Hey everybody, this is Anthony from VR Game Rankings and welcome to episode 2 of the daily vlog. Today is October 3rd, and of course yesterday was the very first episode. And yesterday I laid a lot of the groundwork and kind of the ground rules and kind of the basics of what this daily vlog is going to be all about. And so the good news is we don't have to go over any of that crap today. And we can get into more of like actual content that you guys might actually be interested in. So that's the good news about being on episode 2. Now, yesterday when we did the episode, because I did want to kind of explain everything about what I'm trying to do with this vlog and stuff, we didn't get into any news. And there actually was some legitimate news that happened yesterday, and so I thought, well, and there might even be some news today that I need to take a quick look at, but what I thought is we can go over some of these pretty big news stories and kind of get into that a little bit. So let's see here. Let me go ahead and check what I have written up. Okay, so the biggest story really yesterday in VR gaming, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest story is Sony. Okay, so we basically have 3 major platforms in the VR gaming industry right now. We have the HTC Vive, we have the Oculus Rift, and we have the Sony PlayStation VR. Now, there will be the Microsoft mixed reality headsets. They are coming on October 17th. Whether or not that is going to be a 4th platform, from a video game standpoint, from a VR gaming standpoint, that really depends if Microsoft is going to have exclusive games that you can only get on their store. And if that happens, and especially if these games, like if you absolutely have to have a mixed reality headset to play these games, then that's definitely their own platform. And so we're going to have to wait and see. You know, October 3rd, actually, I believe today is the day when Microsoft is going to have like a big conference about mixed reality. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen later today. So I'll probably be talking about that on the vlog for tomorrow's episode. But basically we have 3 platforms is what I'm trying to get at. We've got the 2 PC platforms. We got Vive and Rift. And then we have PlayStation VR. And so I think if anything major happens with any of these 3 platforms, that's big news in the world of VR. And yesterday what happened for Sony is it was announced that Sony is going to have a new PlayStation VR headset. Now, at first, everybody got super excited and they're like, oh my God, a new one already. I wonder if it's going to have higher resolution. You know, I wonder if they're going to go with wireless, maybe a new tracking system. Okay, none of that is going to happen. So what this is the equivalent of like Sony having a PlayStation 3 and then coming out with a slim version of the PlayStation 3. That's kind of what this is. So what Sony has done here is they've made some very minor adjustments to their headset, and they made some major adjustments to the processing box that comes with their headset. So for those of us that bought a PlayStation VR a year ago, for example, I bought a PlayStation VR right when they came out about a year ago, and same thing with Steve on VR Roundtable. We both bought PlayStation VRs. I bought a PlayStation 4 Pro. I think he bought a PlayStation 4 Pro as well. And so we really jumped on this PlayStation VR bandwagon. But one of the downsides that the PlayStation VR has had since the very beginning is that it has this processing box. And what you have to do is you have to run the HDMI from your PlayStation 4 system into this processing box, and then you run that into your VR headset. And then if you also want to go back to a TV, there's another cable that goes back to the TV. So the problem with this is it has to go through this processing box, and the processing box could not handle HDR. It could not handle high dynamic range for these new HDR televisions. So if you have like a really high end HDR TV, you could not get HDR if you had your stuff hooked up in this sort of way. You would actually have to unplug an HDMI cable, plug it into another plug to actually get that legit HDR. So this processing box that Sony shipped with last year, it was kind of handicapped, from this standpoint of not being able to process this HDR. Now, for me personally, I do actually have a 4K TV that's in my living room where I have my PlayStation VR setup, but the 4K TV that I got unfortunately does not have HDR, so I'm not getting all that crazy HDR stuff. This 4K TV was a little bit before they started doing the whole HDR thing, and before that became commonplace. The TV that I got, if I had wanted HDR, I could have gotten it, but it was like another $1,000 just to add that feature. And I was like, at that time, I was like, nah, that's okay. I'm good. So for me, has it affected me personally not having this HDR? No, there's been no effect whatsoever. It doesn't bother me at all. But there are a lot of consumers out there that do want the latest, greatest, and they don't want there being some caveat that prevents them from enjoying it to the fullest possible extent. And so what Sony's doing here, they're redesigning their PlayStation VR setup so that this is no longer a bugaboo. This is no longer an issue because HDR is becoming more and more commonplace. If you go to Best Buy right now to buy a new TV, so many more TVs have that. So many more TVs are 4K and all this stuff. So, excuse me, sorry. So this HDR thing is a big deal. So Sony had to come up with this redesign, and that's what this is about. And it's mostly about this processing box. And when a lot of people heard about this, they were like, fuck, this sucks, man. How do I get one of those processing boxes? Can I just buy the new processing box on the side? Unfortunately, that's not going to work because the new processing box has new cables that go to the actual headset itself. Somehow the design of it is different. I don't know if eventually they'll be able to come out with a separate processing box that'll work for the old original PlayStation VR units. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do that or not. But if you want this HDR capability, basically what you have to do is you have to sell your PlayStation VR right now. You have to just sell the entire thing, and then when this new version comes out, you buy the new one. Now, when does this new version come out? Well, we heard something about like October 14th, but I don't know that that was official, or that might have been more like Europe or something like that. So the idea is we don't have an absolute concrete date on when this new updated version of PlayStation VR is coming out. But sometime later this month, basically, probably very close to when the Windows Mixed Reality stuff is coming out on October 17th. So this month of October, I'm telling you, this month is kind of bonkers. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. But one thing I did want to mention in regards to this PlayStation VR situation is if you've ever thought about buying a PlayStation VR, well, if you're willing to buy a used one, this next 10 days is probably going to be the best time ever to buy a used PlayStation VR. And the reason for this is because I'm on the PSVR subreddit. I'm in some other various forums where there's PSVR gamers talking about it. And the general consensus is that a ton of PSVR gamers are going to sell their existing PlayStation VR and they're going to get one of these new ones just because for them they feel like, okay, I can sell it. I might take like an $80 loss, a $100 loss, who knows, but fuck it. I'm buying the brand new one. I want all the new stuff and I want to have a brand new one. I want to have that HDR box. I want to have the new headphone setup, which I'll talk about in a second here. But if you're looking for a used PlayStation VR, I honestly don't think that there will be a better time than basically like right now. Like I would check eBay, I would check Craigslist, because if you want to get one way cheaper, because there's going to be a flood, there's going to be a ton of people dumping these trying to make the upgrade. And so whenever It's just market economics. When there's too much supply, then the price goes down. eBay might be a good place to look as far as that goes. And I've had people say, like, I have PC VR gamers that have talked to me about PlayStation VR, and they'll say that, PlayStation VR is a joke. It's like my child's first VR setup. It's like a starter kit. And I think that's a little too harsh. I think it's a little too harsh. In fact, yesterday I played a PlayStation VR game called End Space, which is kind of like an Eve Valkyrie type game. And I'm going to hopefully talk about that a little bit later on today's daily vlog segment. But I think this idea that PlayStation VR is a joke and it isn't bringing much of anything to the table, like if you have a Vive and a Rift, like you do not need to worry about PlayStation VR. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. There's so many great exclusive games that PlayStation VR has. For example, if you have a Vive or a Rift, are you playing Rush of Blood Until Dawn? No, you're not playing that. Are you playing Bound? No, you're not playing that. Are you playing Riggs? No. So PSVR, Resident Evil 7. So PSVR has some exclusives, and they're going to continue to have exclusives. So if you find locally in your local area on Craigslist or maybe on eBay a screaming deal on a used PSVR, you might want to consider that, because people will be dumping them in great numbers. Okay, now, am I going to dump mine? Am I going to try to pay an upgrade fee to get this new PSVR? No, I'm not. Okay, I'm not going to do it. Although I will say one of the things about this PSVR update is they're moving the spot where they put the headphone jack. And actually, hold on one second. I'm going to grab my PSVR headset because it's right over there and I can show you guys what I'm talking about. One sec. Okay, so here's my PSVR headset, right? I have it disconnected because I leave it over here, and then when I'm actually going to play PSVR, which is in my living room, I just bring this with me, plug it in. It takes all of like 20 seconds. It's like no big deal. Now, what Sony's doing here is that, okay, do you see this white thing right here? I'm going to try to put it up a little bit closer to the camera. So if I tilt that, see that little black dot that's in the middle there? That's where you plug your headphone jack into. And I can tell you from personal experience, in fact, actually, I have my headphones right here. These are my Sennheisers, okay? These are my Sennheisers, right? And I actually have, it doesn't look short. Hold on a sec here. But I actually have a relatively, it's hard to hold all these things. I actually have a relatively short cord for my Sennheisers, which I got on purpose for use with the HTC Vive. So I don't have like a long cord dangling back. I'd like it to be even shorter, but this was the shortest one I can get. And so anyway, what you do is you plug this into this side piece here, right? And so you have your headset on, and then you have this on. But the problem, what I've found is right here, it gets all tangled up. It just becomes a mess. And so that's one of the things that Sony wanted to do. Is it was kind of a design flaw for them to put that there, because I can tell you when you have your headphones on, I don't know how many times I'm playing PSVR, especially a stand-up experience where you have to kind of grab the wires and kind of flip them behind you. And this arm especially, like I get it caught and I got to get my arm out and then I got to flip the wires back. And that's kind of what you have to do sometimes because they have that little dongle there. And so what Sony did with the design on their new PSVR, what they did with the design is, I believe it's like right here. It's right here, I think. They put a headphone jack plug. So you can plug a little headphone jack in there right there. And then if you use Sony's version, like it clicks in here and it hides in there. And so you don't have like any wire at all. And that's if you use their little earbud thing. But if you have I'm sure there will be some aftermarket headphones that will be designed to have like a super short cord and to fit in that spot and actually have good headphone quality. And that is a nice feature. That's the one thing that I would want from this new PSVR version. That's definitely the one thing that I would like to get out of this, is to get the new headphone jack, because that is an issue. Now, the other thing I'll say too, though, is sometimes when companies redo stuff like this, they make other minor improvements, like little minor things that is not worth them advertising, but actually has real value. And so it's one of those things with this PSVR headset where basically we're going to have to wait and see if people find out that, oh, you know what, this new headset also has this other feature that people don't realize. Maybe it doesn't get fogged up as much. There's little things that maybe Sony isn't going to advertise about it, but that it does have an improvement. Now, one of the negatives as I kick the cord away is the cord. Some people have looked really close at comparison pictures that Sony has released, and they've come up with the idea that the cord is about 1 foot shorter than the existing cord. And I think that's a bad idea, because I like to be able to get that distance away from the camera. If you're playing Super Hot or you're playing Hollow Ball on PSVR, both games work great, actually, all things considered, but you kind of want to get a little bit further away and give yourself some room to work. And so they shorten the cord up a little bit. And then also the cord that goes from the headset, like there's kind of like 2 cords, and I believe they changed one of the cords a little bit. So this is going to be one of these things where honestly we might just have to wait until people actually get their hands on this and they run it through its paces, and they might find out, yeah, the cord is 1 foot shorter, and this works a little bit differently than that. One of the things about that little dongle is the little dongle does have a plus and a minus for your volume control, and it has a mute button for your mic. And it is kind of nice to be able to reach down and grab that little dongle and raise the volume a little bit or turn it down a little bit, and that's where you turn it all on. And so they're basically taking away that dongle. So is it going to be on the headset somewhere? Is there going to be a little volume up and down button on the headset somewhere? Is there going to be a little mute on the headset somewhere? I've also heard that they changed the location of where the microphone is on this headset. So there are these little minor differences, and it is going to be one of these things where we have to kind of wait and see how it all shakes out. But the grand scheme of things, there's no major difference here. There's no big change. It's not like this is wireless or something. There's no reason to run out. Now, if you do have that HDR TV, I understand that. But if not, you pretty much are fine here, okay? And again, if you want to buy a used one, this is a great freaking time. The other thing that Sony announced is that they're going to have new Move controllers. Now, the Move controllers are basically going to be identical, so they're not adding thumbsticks or anything like that. But these new Move controllers are slightly redesigned. They're supposed to have better battery life. They're not backwards compatible with PlayStation 3. These will only work with PSVR, basically. And they have a different little mini USB charging thing on the bottom of them compared to the other ones. Now, I'm actually going to get 2 of these controllers when I can. And the reason why I'm going to do it is because when I got my PlayStation VR, I already had some Move controllers. So I didn't buy the bundle that had the controllers. I bought the bundle without the controllers. And so I kind of need new controllers, because the thing that I've noticed with my old Move controllers that came from a PlayStation 3 is that sometimes when I'm turning on my PS4, I'm starting up my PlayStation VR, I want to play Super Hot, or I want to play Archangel, or something where you use the 2 Move controllers, the Solus project, which recently came out for it. And what happens is I turn on one of the Move controllers, and it logs in, and everything's great. I turn on the other Move controller, it turns on, but it never logs in. And then I have to like shut everything down. I have to do it again. It's almost like you got to do it in a very specific order, and it just is kind of janky. And I don't know if that's just my Move controllers because they're kind of older ones and maybe they've been dropped on the ground a few too many times. I don't know, but I figure I might as well upgrade and get some newer versions. It's supposed to have better lasting battery time. But the other critical thing that I'm thinking about is, the light ball that's on top of it and also the rumble that's inside of it. Now, Sony might not advertise this, but maybe they've improved the light a little bit. Maybe they've improved the rumble a little bit. And so this might be something that they're not going to advertise because it's not worth saying, but maybe these new ones will track slightly better. Maybe the rumble will be slightly better. So I'm kind of thinking of that as far as that goes. So that's kind of the Sony news that has hit, lots of drama about that. One other quick thing I will say about all this Sony news is that people will talk about the fact that where's the thumbsticks? Where's the freaking thumbsticks? And what I'll say about the thumbsticks is, dudes, you gotta wait for PlayStation VR 2. You can't switch it up in the middle of the game. Then you have the haves and you have the have-nots. And you can't do that, man. I see it on Reddit every single time in the PlayStation VR subreddit. People talking about, come on, where's the new Move controllers? I can't believe they didn't just put 2 thumbsticks on it. Are you using your brains? Like, really, think about it. You can't come out with a certain kind of controller and then halfway through, you come out with a completely different controller. Then you have a set of people that have the old one, you have a set of people that have the new one, and then you have a set of people that don't even have the Move controllers. They only have a DualShock 4. The developers that are developing the games, they got to make a regular PS4 version, they got to make a PS4 Pro version, and now they got to think of 3 different possible controllers you're going to have. I'm telling you, it's a clusterfuck of a situation. You don't want to go down that road. I know it's painful. I know these controllers aren't very good, but the way I look at it is this. Have some patience, man, because when PSVR 2 comes out, I truly believe that Sony is going to emulate what Microsoft has done with their mixed reality controllers and what Oculus has done with the Touch, where it's going to be a controller that just kind of molds into your hand. They're going to have a completely different tracking solution, and it's going to be a major, major jump forward. And I believe November 2019, we will see PlayStation 5 and we will see PSVR 2, and they're going to come out at the same time. And they're going to work together, and it's going to be a major push by Sony to really capture this VR market. And so, yeah, the Move controllers as is, yeah, they suck pretty much, but Solus Project has proved that you can kind of aim the Move controller in a certain direction, you hit that move button, you move forward. I've been doing that. I told Steve that developers can do this. They can figure this out. That's what it's going to be like in Skyrim. And when Fallout 4 comes to PSVR, it's going to be like that as well. And yeah, is it kind of craptacular? Sure, it is. But November 2019 will be here. November 2019 will be here sooner than you know it. And you'll be able to buy yourself a brand new PlayStation VR 2, which will probably be wireless, and it will probably be, it'll probably use the kind of tracking like Microsoft is using. Maybe there will be no cameras at all. And just be patient. Be patient. It'll all come to us in good time. Okay, sorry I spent so much time there on PSVR. Let's see, because we're running out of time here now. Okay, so let me, real quick, I'll talk about Fallout 4. So HTC Vive announced yesterday that if you buy a brand new HTC Vive, you will get Fallout 4 VR, which is a $59.99 value. Remember, Fallout 4 VR, there's no discount. It's a full $60 banger. So this is kind of interesting because if you're looking to buy a Vive and you knew damn well you were going to buy Fallout 4, and most of us know damn well we are, well, this saves you $60 on the price of a Vive because you're buying Fallout 4 anyway. So this is a good move by HTC, and Fallout 4 VR is the biggest game. Now we know there's all kinds of like chatter that is going on behind the scenes that it's not going to be very good, that Fallout 4 has major problems, yada, yada, yada. I still have the take. Let me play it myself. Let me make that decision. I know people have tried it at all these different places, but I know the demo they've tried is really old, and I'm going to give Bethesda the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to judge this thing right away. And so HTC packing it in with their Vives, I think that is a good play. I think that is a smart play. And it makes perfect sense. The $59.99 price, that is going to be interesting because that is a shock to the system for PC VR gamers because we don't have very many games that cost that much. I know Eve Valkyrie and I mean, there were a handful of VR games on PC that did cost the full $59.99. Like I believe if you want to buy Project Cars 2, I believe that's $59.99. Eve Valkyrie, when it first came out on Steam and Oculus and stuff, I believe that was $59.99. We have other games like The Climb that are like $49.99. So there have been some higher price games, but it's pretty rare because usually when we have a big VR game, it's $39.99. Like Lone Echo is $39.99. Wilson's Heart, $39.99. Killing Floor Incursion, $39.99. Even a lot of the big games on like Steam, like Raw Data and Arizona Sunshine, $39.99. So when you jump to this $59.99 price, that is a banger of a price. That hits you pretty hard, and it's going to be interesting to see how the PC VR gamers deal with that price. And then you add on top of it the fact that there is this undercurrent of discontent about how good this Fallout 4 VR version is, and then you add on that huge ass price of $60. It is going to be interesting to see how all that plays out because a lot of people are saying, hey, I already own Fallout 4 VR. You're not going to, I mean, not VR, but I already own Fallout 4. You're not going to give me any kind of a discount? This is kind of bogus, man. I got to pay the full 60 bones again. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. But HTC packing it in with the unit, smart idea, very good idea, makes a ton of sense. And so that's that. Now we're almost out of time here. I have a couple of minutes left, and I'll just briefly mention, okay, so yesterday I played this game called End Space. This is by Orange Bridge Studios, and this game is coming later this year, well, either later this year or very early next year, to the Oculus Rift and to the HTC Vive. So if you don't have a PlayStation VR package, then you might not care that much about this, but it is coming, so maybe pay attention to this anyway. But basically what this is, it's very similar to Eve Valkyrie in its style, with one major difference. This is single player only. There is no multiplayer whatsoever. Also, this is a budget title. It's $19.99. This is not a full price game. And $19.99 on PlayStation VR, that is budget. If you're a console gamer, if a game comes out at $19.99 or less, that is a budget price. Now, if you're on Steam and your price is $19.99, that's not necessarily a budget price, quote unquote. If you're $9.99 or less, that's more of a budget. It's a little bit different when you get on the PC. But on PlayStation VR, this is a budget price of $19.99. But the biggest problem that I have, I guess, with End Space is it's not releasing in a vacuum. Eve Valkyrie does exist, and although Eve Valkyrie was that full $59.99 when PlayStation VR launched, Eve Valkyrie has dropped. It's $29.99, okay? So it's $30 now instead of $60, and End Space is $20. So you can pay $10 more and you can get Eve Valkyrie. Now, obviously, if you want multiplayer, you got to go with Eve Valkyrie. But what if you don't care about multiplayer, which is kind of the situation that I'm in, actually. If you don't really care about multiplayer, this game, End Space, might be the better buy actually, because it is very tailored to single player, and Eve Valkyrie's single player is kind of lame really. It's kind of it's almost like they're just throwing a little bit of single player in there just to kind of shut people up, but they kind of want to steer you to the multiplayer as far as Eve Valkyrie is concerned. But In Space is designed 100% around that single player idea. And so you go into these missions, and it's a relatively short mission. You're battling these guys, and then you got to do something else. You go to a new mission. And so it's just a bunch of different missions that you get into. The graphics are pretty damn good. One of the beautiful things about it is it has this cockpit that's going over you, right? And when you're in there, like you look up, like the top of the cockpit is right there. Like your head is at the very ceiling of the cockpit. And the thing about it is with some of these space games, like Eve Valkyrie in particular, I fly around, I'm flying around in space and I'm doing stuff. It looks really good. If I start doing these turns where I'm like, zzz, and I'm going like that, I can sometimes get like a queasy feeling in my stomach, and it's like, oh, that does not feel quite right. In this game, In Space, I've been able to do all kinds of crazy maneuvers, and it hasn't really bothered me. And I think part of the reason is because of the way this cockpit is. Even though up here on the top part of your cockpit is mostly windows where you can see other ships flying above you or whatever it is, there's lots of pieces of the ship that are like pieces of the ship with then windows around it. And what that does is it grounds you in that experience and it keeps you in there. And so I think when you start doing these fast maneuvers, you don't get the queasiness that at least that I got with Eve Valkyrie. Now, all of this is your mileage may vary type of stuff when it comes to this kind of queasiness. But I happen to notice I didn't get as much queasiness. Now, is In Space like without flaws? No. Okay, it's not. First of all, this is PSVR. I'm playing it on a PS4 Pro, but there still is a little bit of that Vaseline look that a lot of PSVR games have. I call it the Vaseline look, kind of the Drive Club VR look, which is where it's kind of like if you had your screens and then somebody took a thin layer of Vaseline and just barely covered your screens with Vaseline. Everything would kind of have like this like Vaseline-y look to it. And this game does suffer from that a bit. And that's just kind of a PSVR thing, really. It's funny because it's like if I find a PSVR game that doesn't have that, it's like a standout title to me, like Static. Like Static does not have any Vaseline look that I can think of. Wayward Sky didn't have any Vaseline look. Bound, I don't think, had any kind of a Vaseline look. So some PSVR games, I don't know, the rendering engine or whatever they're doing, some of them are able to kind of hide that a little better than others. In Space, you do see a little bit of that Vaseline look. The other thing that bothers me with this game is there's an announcer guy that talks to you while you're in your cockpit, like telling you what to do. It's too freaking loud. The volume is way too loud. And I went into the settings. I went into the menu. I know I'm past 30 minutes here, but I just want to finish up on In Space. You go into the menu and you want to turn that volume down for just the announcer guy. I couldn't find the option anywhere. So I'm stuck with this announcer guy being freaking overbearing and too freaking loud. And I can't even understand him that good, even though he's so damn loud. So that Orange Bridge Studios, I mean, if I have a complaint about that, it's that announcer guy, and I kind of wish I could turn his volume down. One other little complaint I have is like the process of locking on your missiles. The enemy ships are moving around and you're trying to lock your missile and then shoot your missile. For some reason, I don't know. I don't feel like I truly understand what I'm doing as far as that. And like shooting my weapons, my primary weapon, my secondary weapon. Sometimes it works, right? And I feel like I'm shooting these guys out of the sky and I'm blowing them up and they blow up real good and everything works great. And then sometimes I'm shooting and it's like, why am I shooting? I'm aiming it here, but my shots are going over there. It's like, I don't understand. So I haven't, like, I don't have a review of In Space yet. I need to play this more. But I've been encouraged still. I still kind of like what's going on here, and it is $20. It is $20, and it's single player focused, which is kind of what I'm into. But like, if I could give a final recommendation, if all you care about is single player, should you still pay that extra $10 and get Eve Valkyrie, or should you save $10 and get In Space? And unfortunately, I can't quite make that call yet. I think I need to play it a little bit more to make that final call. I think I might edge towards In Space, though, to be honest with you, just because Eve Valkyrie, the single player content, is so paper thin that I think I might edge more towards In Space, where it's more designed with that single player content in mind. And so it'll be interesting when this game does come to Steam and it does come to Oculus to see how the improvement in the graphics, it won't have that Vaseline look, that's for sure. Hopefully they'll do something with that announcer. I really think they need to lower the volume, or maybe even get a different announcer or something. There's something about the clarity of what he's telling you. It's almost kind of hard to understand. But anyway, that's In Space. I've gone over the 30-minute mark. Not really supposed to do that, but I spent so much time talking about the PlayStation VR, the updated version of PlayStation VR, and the updated Move controllers and all of that. But anyway, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for episode 2 of our daily vlog. Once again, this is the October 3rd, 2017 episode of our daily vlog for VR Game Rankings, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take it easy.